listening to Soberoso, a show dedicated to alcoholics, addicts, survivors of abuse, overcomers of great tragedies, and those of us with mental health issues too. Each week, we invite guests and listeners from around the world to listen in as we have casual conversations with regular people like you and me who've, against all odds, turned their lives around. If you're a family member of someone suffering from alcoholism or addiction, a newcomer or old-timer, or sober curious, this show is for you. Join us now on the Soberoso podcast with your host, Dora Gosselin, in sharing our passion for recovery.
I'm so happy that you are here joining me again today on the Soberoso podcast. I'm really excited to share an interview with my guest and friend who's joining us in Yelapa, Mexico. Her name is Julia, and she's from Vicara Wellness. Her and I are going to be putting on, with the collaboration of some other very important people, an amazing event in Yelapa, Mexico this December. She's going to share a little bit of her story with us and more about this event and how you can be involved and how you can get your butt to Mexico and come see us there. So, Julia, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you, Dora. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. So as we're sitting here today, maybe you guys can't see us, but Julia and I are visually looking at each other. You might be able to see this later online, but if you're just listening to the audio, Julia is in her beautiful bungalow in Yelapa in a tank top, and I'm in Canada in a hoodie. I'd normally be in Mexico, but I'm not at the moment. So Julia, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about where you live?
Thank you, Dora. I live in a little bay, a fishing village right outside of Puerto Vallarta. So you can only get to it by panga. And a panga, for those who don't know what that is a little fishing boat. So it is very unique in many ways because there are no cars, there are no roads. We have cobblestone roads where there are horses and even little motos, if you're familiar with ATVs, help people get around town. But it's very much a space with very minimal pollution. And it gives you this very quaint and peaceful feel as soon as you come here, because it's almost like you're on an island. You step on the beach and you are within the nature and the beautiful space of the view of the ocean. And it is just amazing. So I'm very happy and feel very special to be living here.
Yes. And for those of you that are listening and do not know anything about Yelapa, I'd strongly advise you just type it into your search engine and check it out. For myself, I have been going to Yelapa for over 20 years, and I started going back in the day when I still partied, and I started going there quite often for full moon parties. But it is a very magical place. Like Julia said, you get on a little fishing boat outside of Puerto Vallarta. I think there's about 2 or 3 options a day, and it's about a 20 to 30 minute ride. And when you get off and you land in Yelapa, it is like going back in time, but to this just jungle-esque, beautiful paradise where the edge of the jungle mountains meet the ocean. And like Julia said, there are no cars, there are no cops, there are none of these distractions that you probably experience if you're living or listening to this from a city. It's a very magical place, and I hope some of you can join us there in December. So Julia's joining us from there today in her little palapa. And I just wish I could step onto that beach right now and give you a big hug.
Oh, me too, Dora. That would be amazing. But I'll see you soon.
Yes, you sure will. So, Julia, now that we've talked a little bit about Yelapa, and people can maybe get a picture in their head if they don't already know what and where Yelapa is, why don't we back this up a bit? And I'd love to know a little bit about you, Julia, about your personal experience with maybe alcohol and drugs, and how that looked in your life in the past and how it looks now.
Yeah, so I have been living in a very interesting path towards my own personal journey of sobriety in many ways. We can say that. And I'm not going to use the word recovery because I haven't classified myself as someone who is an addict, but I have classified myself as someone who has been living their life in the past with some very unhealthy choices, being a part of very unhealthy relationships that I felt that I needed to be a part of, using alcohol and drugs. So where it all began was me really connecting to a deeper place in myself that I wanted to live a life different than what I was living. I wanted to live a life where I was no longer feeling driven by being accepted in social circles, by using drugs and drinking alcohol, and just being a part of the party life in our 20s, right? Years of college and years of just starting to become an adult. We really identify our life as a life of partying, as a life of also finding love amongst that partying, and wanting to find love and wanting to be accepted. I became a part of those circles where drinking and drugs was the thing to do. But something deep down inside of me was just calling out that this wasn't the way of life, that there was some deeper meaning and deeper purpose for me to be here on earth. Right. So this is where I've started really self-reflecting and really looking and searching in my heart of what and how I wanted to change and become a better version of myself. I would always see yoga options, and that was something that's always piqued my interest. It took me years really to attend a yoga class. I would always, like I said, these options that were available to get into healthier habits, but I would never let myself do it. I would never feel the drive or desire to do it. And then finally, through just some of my darkest days, I turned there. I went to a yoga class, and it doesn't have to be a yoga class, but that was my calling. And I went, and from that point forward, it started changing my life.
I love that you talk about becoming a better version of yourself, Julia, because that is all about what my recovery looks like too. When I started my own journey, I just wanted to quit drinking and drugging, but I really didn't know at the beginning how much that was affecting every aspect of my life. And when I put that stuff away, how many different areas of my life improved. So it sounds like from what you're telling us so far is that you are kind of coming at this different than most of our guests. Most of my guests are coming from a point where they are definite addicts or alcoholics and have tried to get sober many times and have struggled with it. And it sounds like you're coming at us more of a sober, curious angle and a choice. You are more in a position to choose sobriety and this as a lifestyle, which is amazing. I love that.
Yes. You're listening to Soberoso. Sharing our passion for recovery. My passion for recovery comes from a different perspective, from the family perspective. The family member living with someone who is struggling with addiction, struggling with maintaining their sobriety. And it's still something I see to this day when I go home and visit my family.
Right.
But what it's done for me at a very early point in my life is that it showed me where the path that I didn't want to go down. But I didn't really realize that whenever I was experiencing my unhealthy lifestyle, doing drugs and drinking, I really didn't even associate it to that. And even at that time, the addiction within my family was never present or known until later on. And so I began to know that there were sides of me. And I also knew that there was addiction on my father's side of the family with alcohol. I grew up knowing that. I grew up with my mother and my father always saying, you know, my brother was an alcoholic, his father was an alcoholic, and my father worked not working very hard with it, but he made a early choice in his life to no longer drink due to that possibility. So I come from it with that knowing. And I think that it also gave me the support and foundation of whenever I was in the crossroads of making the choice of how I wanted to get through the very difficult time in my life that I was trying to work through. I could have turned down the path of partying and drinking and doing drugs even more, or I could have gone the other way. And I directed myself in the other direction. I grounded enough in knowing, hey, I want to come out of this by becoming a more healthier and stable version of myself for the future, for me to create the life that I truly was looking to have.
I love that. You told us that in your drinking and drugging circle or choices in the past, that a lot of it had to do with, it seems like, fitting in and relationships, that you were just, you know, trying to be loved or trying to be accepted in a relationship. And that, it sounds a lot like codependency to me, which we do see a lot of in addiction and alcoholism, is, you know, that desire to fit in, that desire to be noticed, to be loved, to be seen. And what you're speaking about is, you know, you were doing that to fit in, to feel those things.
Yes, I absolutely was. And I've seen that within myself as I reflected of the whys, you know, and you very much hit the nail on the head. And I think that is something that many of us struggle with because when we start growing as an adult, we don't really learn in school the tools of how to live life in a mindful way, how and what it means to be mindful. And so we're very much, and I'll speak to myself, but I very much wasn't living in the mindset of mindfulness. So everything around me was very much chaotic and all about, oh, what can I buy to wear and go out to the clubs and who can I be? But very much it was all about this state of acceptance instead of this other state of understanding what I was really doing in life, which was very much a lot of nothing.
Right. So how long has it been since you had a drink, Julia?
So I'm going on almost a year.
Woo!
So that's a big
amazing
deal.
Yeah.
That's a big deal because, even with this story that I spoke about, I didn't become sober. I just became a better version with the process of
Mm,
living more healthier with the choices in foods and connecting deeper to who I am and who I want to be by following and connecting to yogic philosophy and practices. So it's taken a long journey to years, right, to come to the point of saying that, or come to the point of no longer drinking and no longer feeling the desire. But
mhm.
once I've gotten to that space to completely cut it off, I guess you could say, it's taken me into a whole different perspective of life. It's made me revisit the ways of habits that I
Mm,
felt like I needed to always have a drink in my hand. And oh, if we're cooking dinner, well, we always need to have some wine.
mhm.
Um, and when you no longer turn to a substance as part of your daily habit, it can become very uncomfortable and odd, especially if you are someone who has classified yourself with an addiction and breaking those bad habits. And even for me, I could feel that weirdness of how do I act and be breaking these habits um, that were really, challenging at first, but became more of an ease over time.
Right. Did you consciously make a decision around a year ago, like, I think I'm going to stop drinking, or this is going to be my last drink? If you are enjoying the Soberoso podcast, we ask you to please hit that subscribe button or follow wherever you're listening.
Honestly, um, and for those who may be listening and it could be hard to relate to, but I've always continued a practice of yoga. And that continuous practice, right? It's not something that appears immediately. It's the
Mhm.
continuation of the practice, it's the continuation of being a part of a healthy community that it just naturally evolved.
Right.
Now, for me, for someone who didn't find drugs or drinking unmanageable, there's many
Mhm.
of us who do a substance and they manage it, and they can even be in very high active addiction and find a way to manage it, or we think we're managing it,
Mhm.
but ultimately we're not. More and more of the practice, it made me realize and come to a deeper sense that I can live this lifestyle, and it actually heightens my level of clarity, of strength, of confidence, of healthier friendships and relationships that I started just to see become in a more natural and organic way,
Mhm.
and doing it without substance. So it really, for me, it happened naturally. It wasn't like, okay, today I'm not going to drink, but I noticed that I no longer was being called to it because I wanted to feel good the next day. I wanted to feel
Yeah.
inspired and also productive to do the things that I wanted to accomplish the next day. And,
Yeah.
with the drugs and drinking, it relaxes you. It might take down your anxiety, but it also takes down a lot of um,
Everything.
everything, right? Being vigorous. Also, maybe you're less, have less anxiety that moment because you're drinking, but now give it a couple hours later and you might be fighting with your friend or your partner, or give it the next day and now, okay, you're more on edge because you didn't get the sleep that you wanted and now you're fighting. So it's
It's
this
true.
this this way that it evolves to become something that energetically is not serving.
Yeah,
And
that's totally true. I mean, in my case and in many people's case, drinking and drugging takes away all your dreams and your hope and your aspirations and your productivity and your inspiration and your creativity. And, we don't get to be selective. Like I myself would get to a point where I was so riddled with anxiety or nerves that I felt that I needed to take a drink to get the edge off. And little did I realize that I was just making that hole in my soul even bigger. Like I was just adding to the problem because I don't just get to take the edge off. Like you said, I'm not just curbing the anxiety. Everything's coming down a bit. It's not a selective process. This drink is going to make me less nervous and I'm going to be able to be creative and productive and responsible. No, it gets everything, you don't get to choose. Like I just want it to address the anxiety and have everything else function normal because it doesn't work that way. So I get it. And I applaud you for just seeing how much better you were and that you could become the true version of yourself by putting those substances away and living into your purpose. It's a beautiful thing, Julia.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's my pleasure. So I would love if we could talk a little bit about this spiritual or addiction and well-being retreat that's going to happen in Yelapa. What is your vision for this retreat? When is it? What's going to be involved?
Yeah, so what I've been creating here with a team of healers, a team of people who also connect deeply with recovery and with working at it from the perspective of holistic wellness. And so this retreat is a retreat that's located in Yelapa, Mexico, where I live. And it is an 8-day, or we could say a week retreat back at Los Naranjos. So Los Naranjos is an eco hotel. It has several traditional Mexican palapas on 4 lush acres of really natural gardens. It's really a place that I chose because it's a place that you can take time to connect with the source of all of being, which is nature. So that's first and foremost that I think is so important. Is this retreat is about connection with nature, and it's also a retreat to have a sober vacation. So that is a big part of this. Is many of us who are in recovery may feel that, hey, I can't connect to going on vacations like I used to because all of the triggers that might be around. And so this is a retreat to take that anxiety away, right? And for you to experience a place of serenity and peace to connect and come back home to yourself with other people in recovery.
I love it.
So here it's a space. Yeah, no, it's amazing. And then it's also on top of that, it's the vacation and to learn holistic wellness tools. So you walk away with knowledge, you walk away with something, and you're also rejuvenated and stirred when returning back home. So here I want to just speak a little bit about the way the accommodations are at this center. So they are rustic, they're unique, but they're comfortable, So there's kind of like thatched roofs and open walls. If you're familiar with what a palapa is is made out of palm leaves as the roof. So it lets in, like the cool breeze, and the beds are suspended from the ceiling. So that can be kind of neat and cool to look at. Right. So it just, to keep the bugs at bay and with mosquito net that will be around you. But at this time of year in December, you don't have to worry about bugs. I'm not going to say there are not going to be any, but with the mosquitoes, things that arise during low season, like what I'm experiencing now in, what is it, September?
Oh yeah, it's totally different.
You know, totally different. So it's a perfect time. And, really the simplicity, living with nature. So it's very much a minimalist eco setup.
Mm-hmm. So when somebody signs up or purchases a ticket to join you here, is it going to be a very structured event, or what's going to happen through the course of a day?
So there is a schedule, but it is very much a schedule where it gives us this open space to see what arises, right? Yes, we'll be following a structure, but I also give it space to, if we feel like one day we want to mostly enjoy the beach, want to just be enjoying our company and sharing our stories, that's fine. This isn't something that's going to be so much locked into not giving us this space of what's going to arise organically. But like I said, there is a schedule. So with this schedule, you'll have daily yoga practice, which is also perfect for beginners. We'll have daily meditation and breath work. And it does come with 3 vegetarian meals a day. So
Nice.
we do want to work with a light detox with the system here during this week, preparing you to, work deeper with yourself once you come home if you choose to. You will be a part of working with a transformational recovery coach. This is a coach from Being True with You. Her name is Tisana, and she also has her own experience in recovery and has turned to the yoga philosophy and way of being to support her on her continuous journey. So we have 4 workshops to work with her in group, and you will learn how to incorporate healthy foods into your diet. So we do talk and have a workshop about nutrition and a workshop about yoga philosophy, mindfulness, ways to incorporate that in your daily life. But more so than anything, you're also here to enjoy vacation. So even though all that might sound like a lot, you're doing that in the morning, parts of that. And then the majority of the day, we're out exploring Yelapa, going on hikes. There's 2 separate waterfalls here, enjoying spaces around the beach, around the bay. There's different even beach spots where you can paddleboard, kayak, snorkel, ride horses. Exactly. There's horseback riding, and just, simply let yourself give your opportunity to disconnect and enjoy the space. And then really after the day is done, we just have to close out each day another practice, but that practice is a strong yoga practice. It is a practice we're going to incorporate many different ways of yoga, whether it be just deep stretching or breathing and meditation for that evening before you go to bed. And then it takes you to dinner and free bedtime. So it's very much a schedule for you to learn, but also really enjoy and release with other people who are in recovery.
I love it. So there's going to be structure, yet time to have free time on your hands and flexibility to enjoy the paradise that Yelapa is. And as you said, it's going to be, a safe space to have a sober vacation with like-minded people who are not centering their vacation around drinking, which is a rarity these days.
Exactly. No, exactly. And that's the big part of it is, getting people comfortable and in a unit and in a group of people that, maybe they have friends that they bring, or just learning and meeting new people to build bigger relationships, stronger relationships with people who are in recovery, who can support each other from a holistic wellness perspective. So that's what's very important to understand is if you feel and connect, and or if you don't, this is the retreat for you. Because if you feel and connect to holistic wellness already, then you want to dive deeper by attending this retreat. If you don't connect, but kind of curious, don't even know if you're quite ready to dive into that space, this retreat is for you, because this will give you that foundation of learning from a very fun and light perspective, because you're also on a vacation. So you get bits of it and you start learning how to incorporate bits of it, but it's very much in depth and rich with information.
Awesome. Well, it is going to be a beautiful experience in a beautiful place. And this is taking place December 3rd to 10th in Yelapa, Mexico. As Julia said, there is going to be meditation, sound healing, yoga, food, nutrition, a vegetarian diet, beautiful beach, beautiful jungle, and other people in recovery. I mean, it's a dream come true. Julia, I know that there is limited space left. So how many spaces do you have left at this point?
Well, before we talk about that, there is one thing that I want to make sure that I don't forget to mention. So with your investment in this retreat, we are creating a community. So we don't leave you after the retreat. This isn't like most typical retreats where you go and it's just for the experience of that week. This is a retreat where we are creating an aftercare support group for people in addiction recovery who want to maintain their life using holistic wellness tools. So we will have bi-weekly to monthly meetings after the retreat over Zoom. It will give you this constant foot in the door of learning and maintaining your sobriety with topics and tools that we'll discuss each and every time we have a session together.
Love it.
So this is something that is bigger than just a retreat. And this group will continue to grow and evolve over time as we're able to put more of these types of retreats on the calendar. So I just think that that is one of the most important perspectives to understand when you are investing your time and energy in this retreat, is you're investing your time and energy in being a part of a community.
Beautiful. So you're going to not only get the incredible and lovely experience of Yelapa and like-minded people with learning these skills, but you're also going to have the follow-up afterwards and the ongoing support, which is absolutely beautiful.
Yes. Yes. So I'm very excited about it. And, just so you also can connect to the type of people who are putting this together, I have Tisana, right? So Tisana, she's the person I mentioned who's the transformational recovery coach with Being True with You, or Being True to You. And she is, in recovery and is also a yoga teacher. And if anybody who's listening knows of Nikki Myers, she's a graduate with Nikki Myers who has created the Yoga for 12-Step Recovery. So her personal recovery from addiction, right, led her to this yogic path. And I think that's beautiful. And she's a big piece of this retreat. And for myself, we've already spoken about why I have become a pioneer for recovery. But what I do in team with Tisana is I'm a certified holistic health counselor with an integrative nutrition. And I'm also a 500-hour registered yoga teacher with Yoga Alliance.
Nice.
So I very much come from the perspective of working with people and connecting to themselves through yoga philosophy, meditation, and nutrition, because I believe that there's a synergy with all of that in creating your overall wellness. It's not just the yoga, it's not just the nutrition, and it's also not just those two, right? It's also working with energy work, with how we are understanding ourselves and others around us from an energetic perspective.
Thank you all for being here with us today and joining us in sharing our passion for recovery. Don't forget to check back regularly for the Soberoso Extra.
So, I just believe that there's a foundation in both aspects of one's life where they can create a heightened nature, a heightened level within the self that enables joy and clarity and honestly the desire to transform, because we can understand it. We can hear, you can listen to me on this podcast right now and say, okay, I understand. Yes, that's right. But do you feel the desire to transform? And that's what this retreat will help you connect to, right? Hopefully the desire to transform, the desire to do things differently.
All right. So you've got yourself, and then you also have somebody that's going to do some sound healing, right?
Oh, yes. So I have two energy workers. So one is working with an energy transmission where it just opens and awakens stagnant energy, different, pathways within the body. For those who might not be familiar with this, and it can be very foreign, and I also don't want to lose you, it's just something that you do to clear the old blockages that have accumulated over time that are really creating these mental, emotional, and physical restrictions that you're not aware that you're doing. So when we eliminate that, or not even eliminate that, that's not the right word. It's more transforming that, moving that. It helps support that desire to transform that I'm talking about. And so, the sound healing, it's a therapeutic use of sounds, of frequency. And it helps to heal you on a physical level. It's, for those that might not be familiar with it, it is different types of singing bowls and Tibetan chimes and bells that are used, even gongs, that work with a certain frequency that, again, also moves blockages on an emotional level. It's supposed to change the thought pattern or certain belief systems that may have been embedded or programmed within you since, utero. So it's beautiful. It really just teaches you to observe the energy level that's around you and gives you that better way to understand your environment and who's a part of your life and how you also give back and serve the world around you.
Awesome. So it's going to be a fantastic experience, and we're going to throw the contact information up in the podcast description, but you can find Julia and the retreat information at www.vicara wellness.com. Soberoso is also being a part of this, and we are helping to get the word out. If you mention that you heard this,
I'm so happy.
me too. If you mention that you heard about this
Dora.
on Soberoso, I will be meeting you off the boat and touch down in Yelapa, and I look forward to it. So before we close up, because we are getting to the end of the hour here, Julia, I would like to know how many spaces you have left, because I know it is limited seating and limited reservations left.
Yeah, so we are booking. So there are 5 spots left. There are double room occupancy and single room occupancy. Is all inclusive, other than your flight and your travel insurance. You'll see all those details once you visit my site.
Mhm.
But then we take the responsibility of the transportation from the water dock to Yelapa. Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah. So we it starts at $17.50 USD for your shared room if you want to come with a friend. 20% is needed to reserve your space, and you can pay the full amount. So I'm willing here, as we are talking here on the podcast, to extend that final due date before you arrive on December 1st.
So there's no reason, if this is sounding appealing to you and it sounds like something you want to do for yourself to get out of the rat race, to get out of the traffic jam, head to Yelapa, ground your soul, free your spirit, get one with nature, and meet others in recovery who also want to do the same. You can reserve your spot with only 20% down right now. And that is a pretty good offer, my friend. So please check it out. And I'd love to see you there in Mexico. Can't wait to see you there too, Julia. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Well, Dora.
Thank you so much for being a part of the show today and for joining us in sharing our passion for recovery.
Thank you for having me.
Please hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to the Soberoso podcast, and help us normalize conversations around alcoholism and addiction recovery. You can join us on Instagram and Facebook at Soberoso. You are not alone, and we do recover. Wear and share your passion for recovery with our His and Hers merch. Visit us at www.soberoso.com.